Imagine you're in the middle of a heated conversation. The tension is rising. Voices are getting louder. But then you say just one sentence and the room goes silent. Not because you shouted, but because you disarmed your critic completely. Dale Carnegie had a secret, a rule so powerful it can silence arguments, diffuse hostility, and make even your fiercest critic your ally. Today, I'll share that rule, and once you know it, you'll never argue again. Welcome to a journey into the mind of a man who changed the way the world communicates. Dale Carnegie, the author of How to Win Friends and Influence People. Carnegie didn't just teach how to be liked, he taught how to be heard without ever needing to shout. He cracked the code on human behavior long before psychology became mainstream. And today we're diving into one of his most powerful insights. A rule so profound it can disarm arguments, silence critics, and even turn haters into allies. Yes, that's right. In this episode, we're unpacking the surprising psychology of why arguments don't actually change minds. They reinforce egos. Dale Carnegie's invisible rule, the one he used to influence world leaders, stubborn skeptics, and tough crowds. Real-world stories that show this rule in action. From marriages on the brink to multi-million-dollar business deals saved by a single sentence. And most importantly, how you can apply this rule today in real life, whether you're arguing with a co-worker, a friend, or a stranger on the internet. Because here's the twist. The most persuasive people aren't the loudest. They're the most emotionally intelligent. And by the end of this video, you'll have one simple, timeless rule that can end arguments before they begin. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, because what you're about to learn might just change the way you speak, listen, and live. Let's unlock the art of never arguing again, and the silent power that comes with it. Let's start with a brutal truth, one that most of us learn the hard way. No one really wins an argument. Sure, you might have the sharper points. The facts might be in your favor. You might even destroy the other side with logic. But when the dust settles, what are you left with? A resentful friend, an embarrassed colleague, a bruised ego, not yours, but theirs. And worst of all, a closed mind. Because the moment someone feels defeated, they stop listening. Not only do they tune you out, they dig deeper into their beliefs. Not because your point was weak, but because your delivery felt like an attack. And when people feel attacked, they defend. They push back. They reject. Now, Dale Carnegie, decades before neuroscience confirmed this, understood it intuitively. He said it plainly. You can't win an argument. If you lose it, you lose it. And if you win it, you still lose it. Pause and let that sink in. It's one of the most counterintuitive but powerful truths about human behavior. Because arguments aren't just about ideas, they're about identity. When someone feels wrong in an argument, it doesn't just threaten their logic, it threatens who they are. It makes them feel inferior, small, dismissed. And human beings will do anything to protect their sense of self. Let's turn the spotlight inward for a moment. Think about the last time someone proved you wrong, in a conversation, at work, or even online. Did you feel enlightened? Or did you feel judged? Cornered? Maybe a little angry? Exactly. And here lies the genius of Dale Carnegie's approach. He realized early on that we're not creatures of pure logic. We like to think we are rational, objective, reasonable. But the truth is, We are emotional beings who occasionally dabble in logic, not the other way around. We crave connection. We respond to empathy. And the fastest way to shut down a person's mind is to try to prove them wrong. But the fastest way to open it is to make them feel respected. That's why Carnegie didn't teach people how to argue better. He taught them how to stop arguing altogether, and instead influence quietly and respectfully. Because real influence doesn't start with facts. It starts with understanding. Let's take a story directly from Carnegie's life. There was a young man attending one of Dale Carnegie's public speaking courses in New York. He was a confident, smart insurance salesman, but had one flaw: he argued a lot. One evening in class, he got into a verbal clash with another participant about taxes. Voices rose. The debate turned personal. Carnegie watched silently. After the class, he took the young man aside and said, "You're right, but you'll never sell a single policy with that approach." The salesman looked confused. "But I had facts on my side," he protested. Carnegie nodded. "You had facts, but you also had an enemy. And in sales, enemies don't buy. Friends do." This moment shifted everything for that young man. He began applying Carnegie's rule number 1, the golden rule, that silences critics. Ready for it? Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. That's the rule. Simple? Yes. Easy? Absolutely not. But this one principle can change every interaction you have, from heated family arguments to political debates on social media. Why? Because when people feel attacked, their natural reaction is defense, not reflection. But when you remove criticism, you open the door to dialogue. Let's break this rule down and see how it works in real life. And if you think this is just old school wisdom, think again. Science backs it up. Modern neuroscience has proven what Dale Carnegie instinctively knew almost a century ago. When you confront someone aggressively, when your voice rises, your tone sharpens, or your words become an attack, the brain interprets it as a threat. Not an intellectual one, a survival one. This reaction is known as amygdala hijack. Here's what happens. The amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for processing fear and emotions, goes into overdrive. It floods the body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. The logical part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, gets overridden. In simple terms, logic shuts down, emotion takes over. In that moment, the other person isn't evaluating your argument. They're not weighing your points. They're not reflecting. They're doing one thing, defending themselves. They're stuck in fight, flight, or freeze mode. And guess what? No one ever changed their mind in survival mode. Now, Dale Carnegie didn't have access to brain scans or behavioral labs, but he didn't need them. He saw the patterns playing out in real conversations in boardrooms, living rooms, and lecture halls. He noticed something profound. People rarely change because they were pressured, but they often change when they feel understood. That single insight became one of the cornerstones of his philosophy. And it's not just theory. History has proven it true. Take, for example, Abraham Lincoln, one of America's most revered presidents, and a man whose leadership helped hold a fractured nation together during the Civil War. But Lincoln wasn't always calm and diplomatic. In his early years, especially as a young lawyer, Lincoln had a sharp wit and a sharper pen. One day, he published a sarcastic, scathing letter in the local newspaper mocking a political rival. He thought it was clever, maybe even justified. But his rival didn't find it funny. In fact, he was so enraged by the public humiliation that he challenged Lincoln to a duel. Yes, a literal duel, swords or pistols at dawn. Lincoln, horrified, realized how close he came to turning words into bloodshed. He backed down, apologized, and narrowly avoided disaster. But more importantly, he never made that mistake again. From that day forward, Lincoln stopped writing letters in anger. He became known for his quiet restraint, his deeply measured tone, and his ability to de-escalate even the most heated debates. Those qualities didn't just earn him respect, they became the very tools that helped him lead through one of the most turbulent eras in history. Now ask yourself, if Abraham Lincoln, with all his brilliance, had to learn this lesson the hard way, what about us? Let's tell a true story, one that beautifully illustrates the quiet power of Carnegie's philosophy. It's about a woman named Teresa living in the heart of Boston. She and her husband had been married for nearly 12 years. 2 kids, full-time jobs, bills, responsibilities, you know the drill. And somewhere between school runs, unpaid overtime, and late-night arguments about who forgot to take the trash out, their relationship had slowly begun to unravel. Every conversation felt like a tug-of-war. Simple questions turned into accusations. Tiny disagreements ballooned into shouting matches. They weren't just living together, they were surviving each other. And deep down, Teresa was exhausted. Not just physically, emotionally. The spark that once kept their marriage alive felt cold. Gone. She wondered if it was too late to fix anything. One night, as she scrolled aimlessly through her phone while folding laundry, she stumbled across a book recommendation. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. She had heard the title before, but never gave it much thought. But something about it caught her attention. It wasn't about couples, or romance, or therapy. It was about people, and understanding them. She downloaded the audiobook and began listening during her commute to work. The stories felt strangely familiar. The lessons struck a chord, and one principle hit her like a ton of bricks. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. It echoed in her mind. She realized that's what she and her husband had been doing. Every day. Without even knowing it. They weren't fighting because they hated each other. They were fighting because they stopped trying to understand each other. And then came the turning point. It was a cold Tuesday evening. Her husband came home late from work, visibly tired. He loosened his tie, walked into the kitchen, and sighed. Then came the spark. "Dinner's cold again," he muttered. The old Teresa would have snapped back, "Then maybe you should try cooking for once." But something inside her shifted. She remembered Carnegie's rule. She remembered the audiobook narrator saying, "Resentment is never dissolved by criticism, any more than salt is dissolved in oil." So instead, she took a deep breath, walked over and said, softly, without sarcasm, "I know it's been a long day. I'll reheat it for you. Want to sit down while I do?" Her husband blinked, caught off guard. He looked at her, searching for the catch, the trap, the fight that didn't come. And for the first time in weeks, he said nothing. He just sat down, quietly, peacefully. They ate together. No raised voices, no tension. It wasn't magic. It wasn't perfect. But it was different. It was a crack of light in a wall that had felt impossible to break through. And that small, simple moment became the beginning of a new pattern. She began responding with empathy instead of anger, listening instead of interrupting, reflecting instead of reacting. And something amazing happened. He changed too. Not because she asked him to, not because she demanded it, but because her behavior gave him the space to soften, to feel safe, to let his guard down. That single moment at the dinner table became a turning point, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. She didn't criticize, she didn't blame, she understood. And that changed everything. Weeks later, Teresa would write in her journal, "The marriage I thought was falling apart didn't need a therapist. It needed a pause button. It needed me to stop fighting for control and start fighting for connection." So, the next time you're tempted to snap back, to lash out, to win an argument, remember Teresa. Remember that cold dinner. And remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Never underestimate the power of removing blame from your words. It doesn't just change the moment, it can save a relationship. So, if you don't argue, criticize, or condemn, what should you do? Carnegie gave us clear steps. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Start the conversation by acknowledging the good. Talk about your own mistakes first. Say things like, "I've made the same error before," or "I used to think that way too." Ask questions instead of giving orders. For example, do you think it might work better if we tried it this way? Let the other person save face. Don't push them into a corner. Give them dignity even if they're wrong. Appeal to nobler motives. Say things like, "I know you care deeply about fairness, so maybe this matters to you too." These principles aren't manipulative. They're empathetic. They respect the other person's humanity. Here's a powerful example from the business world. A tech startup was about to lose its biggest investor. There'd been a major disagreement. The investor felt the founder wasn't listening and threatened to walk. The founder, instead of arguing, flew out to meet the investor in person. He sat down and said, "You've built companies bigger than mine. I want to understand where I went wrong because your perspective matters to me." The investor expected a fight. Instead, he got humility. That conversation turned everything around. Not only did the investor stay, he doubled his funding, all because the founder chose understanding over ego. The antidote to argument is curiosity. Ask questions, invite stories, seek understanding. When someone criticizes you, say, "That's a strong opinion. What led you to it?" This diffuses tension. It shifts the tone. And most importantly, it shows you're not here to fight. You're here to connect. Carnegie knew this. People don't need to be told they're wrong. They need to feel heard. So next time you feel the urge to argue, remember this. You're not here to win battles. You're here to win hearts. Arguments divide. Understanding unites. And in a world already so divided, maybe the most powerful thing you can do is choose peace over pride. Let Carnegie's rule echo in your mind. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Live by it and watch your life change. If this video gave you a new perspective, hit the like button and subscribe for more timeless lessons from Dale Carnegie. And tell us in the comments, what's one argument you regret? And how would you handle it differently today? We'll leave you with a final quote from Dale Carnegie. When dealing with people, remember you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. Thanks for watching. And remember, the quieter you become, the more you can hear.